Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mighty Switch Force 2. So off screen, we were talking about cartoons. What are your favorite cartoons, Austin?
No, I don't like cartoons. They're for babies.
Like the babies we punt in this game?
Exactly. I'm tired,
Remember,
guys.
if you're a baby who likes cartoons, you too will be punted. It's okay, though. We'll shout you're safe, which means you're fine.
Exactly.
So what was the idea to kind of bring in the green lock block? Is just to add more complexity to it?
Yeah,
or,
that was originally... So originally it was going to be a golden block, so it was like red, blue, yellow. Which, you know, was kind of like some primary colors for painting. I guess we went with green in the end because the yellow looked too much like the standard block. And I think it added a level of complexity. Just can feel like it's a bit too much, you know, because it feels like sometimes one of the hardest things in the original Switch Force was not making standing somewhere really awkward, you know, because here it's like you need to stand inside the blocks, and you know, as you're trying to like solve this puzzle, and you kind of cumbersomely go back to get the other buttons and fall in pits and stuff. It can feel clunky. So it's just, it's trying to add some complexity, but sometimes it might be a bit much.
I never had too much of a problem with it. I would say that 3 is probably the most you would want to see for this kind of thing. I could imagine 4 just not even being... I can imagine 4 being a bit much, but I never had too much problem
I had some
with
problems.
3.
I had some problems with this stage.
On the subject of the primary colors, though, they are still the primary colors, just
Exactly.
a different set of primary colors.
Yeah, they're the subtractive colors of light versus the additive colors of painting.
Mm-hmm. I think for the purposes of this, red, blue, green works better aesthetically. Not sure how I would feel about yellow with all the fire around.
Oh, that's a good point. But you know, you can go more cool yellow. You know, because this green, it's a funky green because it is a very neon, and it's so much like the light on the front of it. It almost seems like a bug. But
that's fair.
It's tough, man. You know, it's hard making games.
Color as well, I can imagine, was colorblindness considered a problem? Well, not a problem, but like, is that something you can consider when making games?
I do.
Like this?
Yeah, I mean, for this one, I don't think it was ever really brought up, and I don't know that we ever experimented with anybody who has color blindness. So I'd be really curious to get people's take on this red and blue. You know, it just wasn't something at the time that I was paying much attention to, and I probably should have been. I know nowadays I pay a lot more attention to those kinds of things. Like on Marble Knights, you know, we have colorblind settings. So and it's funny because, you know, I play Catan on the Xbox, and I actually liked the colorblind colors more because it was easier to tell the different colors apart for myself. But you know, for a lot of the games now, one of my best technical artists was colorblind. And he, you know, we were working on a car game, and he had this like damaged side, and you know, it was like kind of like the paint was rubbed off, and it was all silver, but it was also kind of green. And I talked to him like, oh, this is kind of green, and he's like, oh, really? He's like, well, I'm colorblind, so can you help me? I'm like, oh, okay. And then you know, then I knew that he wasn't, you know, like worried about it, and he didn't mind, you know, getting a little help just to, you know, do whatever. But it was awesome. He was great to test stuff on too, where he would say like, I don't understand what I'm looking at. This is stupid. You got to fix it. It's like, okay, you know, like, so he had a great attitude about it. Actually, my current producer right now is colorblind. You know, so and he was born in Saudi Arabia, so he's been in America for so long that he barely remembers it. But he can read some Arabic, so when we have like Arabic translations in our game, like I can run it by him, and he goes like, I think that makes sense, you know, a little bit. So he's my colorblind and Arabic person. It's great because we also have, you know, there's a woman, she left for a while, but she came back. Her name's Rika, and she speaks Korean and Japanese, and I forget if there's any other languages, but we can run by things with her where it's like, hey, is this spelled right? It's like, yep, that's spelled right. It's like, okay, cool, you know, it's really nice.
No, Ryan, you had it perfect. All you had to do was jump up and shoot.
Oh man.
There we go. And now the problem of getting back up.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Gears are turning and they're not doing much work at the moment.
Yeah, I can tell. I can practically hear the rust, to be honest.
You just hear the phone modem sound.
The inner machinations of my mind.
I feel
are
like
enigma.
a lot of the people who watch this channel, they're probably younger than I am, so most of them haven't actually heard a phone modem outside of that joke.
I mean, I know, like, I grew up on Looney Tunes back in, like, the 80s and 90s. I remember, like, on TNT on weekends, they played cartoons from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. every
Yeah,
weekend.
that was always like an hour they did after school.
Yeah, I mean, this was before Cartoon Network. You know, there wasn't a cartoon channel, you know, so we had Saturday morning cartoons, but then, like, you know, there the Warner Brothers, but man, there were jokes from the 40s that I just didn't understand, but I like
All the pop culture references
Oh, yeah.
no kid understood.
yeah, exactly.
It's like who the hell's Groucho Marx?
Yeah, I mean, and now like, you know, we've gone back recently. I've got kids; they're ages 8 and under. We go back and watch The Simpsons sometimes, and I'm like, wow, this is a reference that they just wouldn't get. There was actually, you know, it's great in DuckTales. We wrote the script, and one of the lines I had in there was when Scrooge McDuck walks into the African mines, and he says, the original line was, "I love the smell of freshly unearthed diamonds in the morning," and the woman from Disney said, like, no, you can't say that. I'm like, oh, really? Why not? She's like, because that's a reference to Apocalypse Now. I was like, really? And because I hadn't really seen Apocalypse Now, I always fall asleep.
Yeah, I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Exactly. And she's like, it's an R-rated movie. I'm like, I didn't know. She's like, how did you not know? I'm like, she's like, then how do you know the line? I was like, because it's used everywhere. There's so many, like, Simpsons and everything else, you know? It's just, there's so many cultural references you don't realize are from, you know, other things. Or I didn't see The Godfather until after I'd watched Simpsons, and you don't really realize how often they reference The Godfather in there, you know?
Godfather's one of those things I feel like most people somewhat know just due to pop culture osmosis.
Oh, exactly.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
it's tough now for Star Wars and Yoda. Like, we put on Empire Strikes Back the other day. When I was like hanging out with the kids and I was like making lunch. I just put on Empire, and they know who Yoda is, you know. And it's just like, it sucks because when you go back and watch that film and you just see how much of a reveal it might have been to have this like weird little puppet guy.
The whole Darth Vader is his father thing. It's like obviously you use time machine for more important things. It's like what you would give to kind of go back to like a theater opening night.
Yeah.
To see like the actual genuine reaction to that.
That would have been amazing, because it is really unfortunate. It's very funny because Matt Bozon, the creative director, you know, at WayForward, who we had many lunches where we talk about Star Wars, and he has some opinions about all the special editions I never thought of. And one of the big things is when you look at Star Wars as a whole, and you know everything that happens, you know, it can, you lose a lot of stuff. But he says, like, you know, in one of the special editions because he kept changing the original Star Wars, right? New Hope.
Yeah.
When Han and Chewie come running around a corner, when they're chasing the stormtroopers and they come around a corner, there's a ton of stormtroopers. They recently added an ATST, and he's like, man, that's such a bummer. Why'd they do that? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, when you look at the movies, when you watch them in order, and you know, when you watch Empire for the first time, you see these big walkers you've never seen before. It's like, oh my god, what are these things? And then you see this like little two-legged one in the background. You're like, what's that? And then you go see Return of the Jedi, and it's like, then you see them, and then there they are. You know, or when you watch Return of the Jedi for the first time and you see that Tidarian shuttle come down right at the start, it's like, wow, what's that ship? I've never seen that before. It's like it's a neat surprise. But now in the new Empires, you see, you know, Vader walking towards that same ship, and he's just like, get my shuttle ready, because it's like we as viewers who are used to it, you know all about it now. So there's no surprise anymore. But if you watch those in sequence at the time, there's all these little reveals that, you know, are just sort of lost these days and forgotten about. It's interesting.
That is an interesting way to think about it. I know that just on a matter of whether or not people will get it, the first time I remember seeing pop culture stuff and not understanding what it was seeing Shrek 2 in theater. Because the very beginning of the movie is all of these references to all of these, like, all these movies that were popular at the time. They've got like Lord of the Rings and Spider-Man and like a bunch of other ones. And it's like I remember as a kid, I didn't get it. I was like, why? What's going on? The Matrix as well, because everything parodied the Matrix in the early 2000s.
Oh, right.
But I was like 8 years old, and my parents weren't going to let me watch the Matrix.
Wait.
Oh, I forgot how cool this level looked.
Is this a pixel art theme within your pixel art style?
Yeah, so I have to go back and talk to Matt because I completely forgot about this. This was just an idea Matt had. This is where he wanted to take the game, next, and he loved this look. And I thought we were gonna do it for a couple stages, but then he said, you know what? I just want to put this on the last stage. And then you go through and this is just sort of like the last normal stage, and then you have this is incident 15, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, just as a slight aside, because I know this is going to be really weird, but looking at the stage and having played it again, the thing that it reminds me of most, and I know it's going to be a really really weird reference, but does anyone remember the background set for Bob Saget's Funniest Home Videos back in the early '90s? It looks like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's
a little bit.
It's definitely got that feel. It's definitely like a late 80s, early 90s sort of retro inspired vibe. And this was in the same way that we did Switch Force 1, we knew we'd want to do Switch Force 2. After we did Switch Force 2, Matt knew he wanted to do another Switch Force right after it. He wanted to do Switch Force Academy, which was a kind of like a virtual hologram training scenario. And so that was sort of the inspiration for this tile set, and if we would have worked on the sequel immediately after, it would have transitioned in like perfectly, but there were some gaps in years. But and then the yellow lizard guys are firing their bullets in the same pattern as the what is it? The guys from Shantae. What are those things? The statues.
Oh, they have a name?
Yeah.
I know the ones you're talking about, like the ones that have the map.
I'm sure they have a name. I'm so bad with names. I just go like,
we'll ask Matt sometime.
Yeah. I just like, these are the yellow guys. We just give them. I just make up my own names for them.
I find that I do that a lot with different video games, where a lot of the times in video games, like you'll only get an enemy name reveal thing, like at the end of the game,
right,
if there even is one at all. And so when you spend the entire game calling things like, oh, that green dude, and then you realize that his name is Stuart, or whatever it actually ends up being, you're like, oh, well, am I going to actually remember Stuart, when I play the game again? And the answer is probably not. But then at the same time, I know the names of like nearly every Mario and Kirby enemy. So I guess it just depends on how often you play the game,
Yeah, but like when you have instruction manuals, it used to help back in the day when they would like show all the different characters, and then it's so much fun at the end of a Mario game when you can sit through the credits and like see all the names of all the enemies. I love that kind of thing. I think I recently beat Super Mario World for my kids, and then we watched the credits and looked at all the names, and they were just names they didn't know of some of the characters. It was really fun.
The thing that really, I guess got me to learn is a lot of the names for these things was, I'm thinking of Kirby specifically. For Mario, it was all the Mario sports games, because you can play as, Goomba and Boo and whatever in the spin-offs, so when you select them on the menu. But it was just having, a little health bar with their name underneath it in the corner, and then that got me to remember it, even though, I guess health for a Kirby enemy is a little unnecessary most of the time, but whatever. So the final level of this game is somewhat similar to the final level of the first game, but it was decided to be horizontal instead of vertical.
Yep.
Do you know if there was any reason behind that, or
it was just a decision I made where I think I talked about it in a previous video that we did for Switch Force 2, where it was just trying to take a balance of what we'd done before and not repeating it exactly, so I thought, well, this time let's go horizontal instead of going vertical and see how that would go. but then still finding a way to lock you off from previous areas in the same way we do in the first game. Because in the first game, obviously you can't. One of the main mechanics of this we never touched on, but in Switch Forces you can't jump up or you can't jump down through soft collision platforms. So it was a lot easier to traverse upward and have that be the easy mechanic to stop you from moving backward. But for this, we had to come up with other methods.
Yeah, we have teleporters now.
Yeah, that was a neat thing. Actually, they were supposed to show up earlier in the game, but they were too complex. Things were getting too complex before I even left the project, and we ended up. Matt, I thought they were going to get cut and just left in for Academy, and Matt's like, no, I want him in here, so we put him in. So. Yeah, it's really interesting. You guys were talking about Switch Force before and Switch Force 3, because if you have the collection, you can play Switch Force Academy, which is a unique Switch Force game where everything is on one screen. And that was Matt's. I think one of his original ideas was it'd be really great to have it all on one screen versus, what he wanted is something I think closer to. When we were first going to bring Switch Force over on the Wii, before we did HD, one of the things that we accidentally did was all the pixels were drawn 1-to-1 on the screen, so Patty was really tiny, but it was still readable. It was still neat, and Matt went, this is really interesting. Like, I really like this. And then that's when he decided he wanted to do Academy and how he wanted to do it, which then became, Academy, the one we made. So.
It's funny how things happen accidentally during development, and then new ideas come from it. But okay.
Yeah, you guys got to check out Academy if you get a chance.
I've never.
I
actually
remember
seen
I didn't
Academy,
check it
so-
out. Like, I was really interested in it when it first came out, but I think it was Steam only for a little bit, and
Yes.
so
Yeah,
that
it was.
kind of kept me from it for a small period of time. But I didn't know that it was on the Switch Collection. I thought the Switch Collection was just 1 and 2, so that actually gives me a good reason to go and buy the game again.
The Switch Collection is actually all 4 games, because it's the original 3DS and Hyperdrive Edition, Switch Force 2, and Switch Force Academy.
Wow.
Oh, neat.
See,
I'm curious how many people play the original versus Hyperdrive Edition, just to see if obviously I'm sure there's no way to really tell, but kind of what those splits would be.
Yeah, I wish too. I don't think there'd be a way to tell.
Okay. So
now you're going to play Academy, and you're going to bring me back at some point, and we can talk about Academy and how weird it is, and
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, it would be nice to be able.
now I
That's
got it, so.
multiplayer, right? Like, it would be nice to be able to
It's
do that with people.
it's local multiplayer.
Yeah. Oh, so
All right,
Not
so
anytime
so
soon, sadly.
so off to Austin's house when everything's safe to do so.
Yeah, come on over.
yeah.
Cool.
Come out to California. And if you guys come out for like E3 or something, we can get together.
Oh,
And,
I would love to go to E3, but I don't know if I could afford it.
yeah, if they ever do something like that again.
And hopefully in the future it will it'll
Be a thing again.
It'll be a thing again. Let's
Yeah,
hope.
well,
they're doing.
I know they're doing the digital event, but it's also like if it's all digital and Nintendo's doing like their Direct and Sony's doing their State of Play or whatever, and it's like, is it really E3 if we're all just doing the same thing digitally anyway?
Well, I mean, it's no different for the majority of the people who watch it because, like, almost everybody experienced E3 as a digital thing anyway. So for really the only thing that people don't get is demos. Like, you don't get to see or read anything about the demos.
A lot of
that people
publications
play.
also manage to use E3 to kind of interview developers a lot as the games are coming out.
Oh yeah, that as well.
But that's more of a press thing than something necessarily we would be doing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to see how, big trade shows like that are going to evolve with the times, considering, I mean, Nintendo and Sony kind of already do their things. Xbox kind of dipping their toes in it. Just kind of, how companies are going to go forward with this when they kind of realize, hey, we don't necessarily need the ESA to hold a big E3 thing to make a little presentation to get her name out there. But I imagine every company's going to be different depending on kind of what their goals are.
It is a bit strange to think about, but E3 is sort of like a relic of a time when we didn't have the internet, or at least not so much ease of exposure on the internet. Holy wow, things got different.
So this is a silhouette stage. Back in the day, this was like a thing in pretty much every WayForward game, is doing the silhouette stage. It's like one of our calling cards. And Sean, that was something he wanted to add to this. Basically, you play anything Sean makes, and there's going to be a silhouette stage in it. Batman Brave and the Bold, Blood Rain, like everything you're doing, Boy and His Blob. So
there's one in Shovel Knight as well.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I mean, here it was just sort of a graphical flex rather than a stage, but.
Yeah. Well, and it usually is a graphical flex. And this one was interesting because it makes a nice transition from the regular part of the stage to, the boss taking over, corrupting everything. Oh wow, a death.
Headshot.
Dang.
I mean, thankfully we should start right at the boss.
Yeah. So that was intentionally designed that way for you. I hope you guys check out Academy. It was.
I am definitely interested in checking it up now.
Yeah.
Also because for my birthday I got an eShop gift card, so I've had money burning a hole in my digital wallet, so to speak.
It's same format. There's 15 stages, and a boss stage. And I designed the entire game, and I even programmed it for the original release of it. And then we ported it back into Engine Black because it was easier. Because I developed it in Game Maker, and that's why it was on Steam. And we were going to bring it to other platforms, and then just a bunch of other things happened at the time. So. And my boss, Boldy really wanted to experiment with early access, and he was like, "Hey, we should put out, Shantae Half Gene Hero," and I was like, "Well, but that was also a,
Kickstarter game.
It was a Kickstarter game, so we probably shouldn't do that." And I was like, "Well, I have this I've been working on. I was making a prototype of Academy, and I showed it to him. He's like, "This is amazing. Let's do this." And then he just wanted to see what early access was like, and then we could fund development of it. So. It was, it was fun.
How, on the subject of early access, like, how involved does that usually get? Because I'm not super familiar with early access games. Like, I think I've bought a grand total of 2 in my life, and I usually just let them sit on my on my account until they're finished.
Right. Yeah.
Well, depending on the game, it never leaves early access. So, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure Shroud of the Avatar is probably still technically early access.
It is different because you are getting a lot more feedback, and I know the people who speedrun the game, they got upset because we would fix bugs they would find, and they stopped telling us like the exploits they would find. So
you guys don't get the point, do you?
Yeah, exactly. It was pretty funny. But yeah, hey Google, stop. Sorry guys. That's fine.
Also, just for the
great.
record, this credits theme is absolutely the greatest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
All right, so this is, I have to say, like, I hope Sean Velasco hears this because I'm so brokenhearted that I didn't get to be a part of this. Jake Kaufman, Jeff Luke, Sean Velasco, and some other people, they sang this, and I had no idea it was happening. I really wish I could have been a part of it. It was so much fun. I love this song.
Yeah, just imagine like being in a room like singing to a village people. God, I can't talk. A village people style song, like that just sounds like the most fun thing.
That's
ever.
exactly what it is. It's like, yeah, let's do a village people song. But yeah, like Jeff Luke, he's just amazing. He is so amazing. He can just sing like crazy 80s style. And I think they ended up He did a bunch of it on what is it? Double Dragon Neon as well.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Oh yeah,
he
for
does,
the tapes.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. He does I think just on the soundtrack. I don't remember, but like Jeff Luke has like the '80s metal hair band like voice, and it's just amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you again for joining us for these commentaries. By the way, it is so fascinating to pick someone's brain over the game that they themselves made.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm happy to be a part of it. It was these games are so much fun to make, and they're so much fun to play, and I don't know. It's one of my favorite times. I actually met somebody. I was at a party. Some people in my condo complex were having a party, and they were being incredibly loud, and my kids are trying to sleep. And I kind of know the neighbors. I open the gate, and I look in, and they're all in their 30s, but they all had a bunch of makeup on. And I was like, wait a minute, where's my neighbor? And he came up. I'm like, what's going on? I was like, oh, we're having a what is it? That was a Panic at the Disco. Oh, it was, I forget. They're just having a party because they didn't get to see some band. It was like they're having an emo party because they're very emotional that night. I was like, okay, that's interesting. But then one of the guys, and then he's like, hey, do you want to come over and have a beer? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I was this old guy there, and I was talking to one of the guys, and he actually had played Switch Force. And,
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he's just like, oh, I love Switch Force. It's great because it's like it does this balance of all this and this. And I'm like, oh wow, someone who knows Switch Force and appreciates it. So it was pretty neat. So
Did you tell him you worked on it?
By the way, so we did this on purpose because it's like, for the Samus reveal of, the suit goes away and then she's in her underwear. We thought it'd be really funny if we took it one step further and her skin goes away and reveals the robot underneath, which I absolutely love for the end of Switch Force 2.
That is a pretty
that's
funny
awesome.
gag.
But yeah, thank you so much again for coming out. We're definitely going to record Academy at some point then, just to get you back on, see what that game really does differently and show the viewers all that, how it works out. I've dabbled in it, but I haven't recorded a playthrough of it.
I'm really glad I guilt tripped you into playing it, just so you could have me back. I think it's gonna be. I'll try to be more high energy next time. Maybe down some espresso shots, because I think it'll be really fun. It's great to do multiplayer, and there's also a versus mode. So hopefully.
You technically already sold it to me because I have the collection. So.
Well, there you go. Well, hopefully you can play it. It is fun with people. It's fun to play on your own, and it's hard to play with other people, but it's a unique challenge. And I'm waiting for the day when to watch people speedrun it, like 4 people. I wish I could see that. I know our QA was really good at it, but I can get into that later if we ever do this. So, but thank you again for having me, and I really appreciate it. And everyone at WayForward really appreciates the love from the community and that people love our game still. So it's really awesome.
Now, thank you again, and we'll see you guys all in the next playthrough. Bye.